back to school night. I appreciate you all coming. During this presentation, if you have any questions, you're welcome to let me know in the chat. I'm going to play this video for the next about 10 minutes. At the end of the video, there'll be about 5 minutes for you guys to ask any questions that you have. If you want to ask the questions before that time, you're welcome to do so in the chat. The agenda for today is I'm just going to do a little bit of a check-in just to see where everybody's at. We'll go over just who I am and an overview of the class, as well as cover some helpful information and answer any questions. My name is Daniel Cabrales. My classes that I facilitate, my two main classes are 6th and 7th grade medieval history, and I also do high school English language development enrichment as an elective. Cool. So I wanted to start today with a little bit of a check-in. I like to start most of my classes with the kids and your children with a little quick check-in just to see where they're at and to get them into the habit of doing personal inventories to see where they're at. So in a moment, you're gonna take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. You're then gonna ask yourself how you feel. Could be an emotion, could be happy, sad, could be a physical feeling. You all could be feeling pretty tired because it's the evening. You still probably have some things to do today before you close out your day. Or it could be a mental experience. You all could be feeling a little overwhelmed with this transition to distance learning, which it has been overwhelming for sure, and it's not anything that we are used to. And then you guys will share in the chat, or you all will share in the chat or in a direct message in 2 or 3 words how you're feeling. And I like to do this with the children because I think it's really important for them to get into the habit of being in touch with how they're feeling, because life is challenging, and being able to have a way to process the challenges of life is really important in my opinion, and I think if it's important for children, it's probably important for adults too. So we'll do this right now. All right, everybody, if you're ready, we're going to take a deep breath in. We'll hold for a second, and we'll release. And then in the chat, once you've thought about how you feel, if you can let us know or let me know privately, just so I get a sense of where you guys are all at or where you all are at. How are you feeling in 2 or 3 words? And I won't be able to see it right now because I'm recording, but I'll respond to it in the chat while we're doing this. So this is my 7th year at ACLC. I have been an educator now for about 8 years full-time, 9 years if you count my student teaching. Before I came to ACLC, I taught at a middle school called Cesar Chavez in Union City. I spent 2 years there before coming to Alameda. I grew up in the Bay. I'm a Bay Area native. My family is from the Union City, Fremont area. I was born in Hayward and lived in Hayward for a little bit, but I spent most of my childhood in Fremont in the Bay Area. Some of my favorite things, I am really into breakfast foods. As I told the kids, I work out a lot, mostly because I eat a lot of breakfast foods. I am a giant baseball fan. I grew up playing baseball. My favorite team right now has always been the Oakland A's. We are crushing it, so to my fellow A's fans out there, we got this. I feel like this is our year. I also like to play computer games, and I backpack fairly regularly over the summer. The important people in my life, this is my family, this is my father, this is me, this is my younger brother Alex, and my younger sister Christina, who is actually in high school. She's a senior right now. This is my mother, and these are our 2 family friends, Marta and Manolo. This was a vacation that we did 2 years ago when we traveled to Spain. My grandfather taught Spanish for 30 years in Fremont, and he had set up a exchange program with their family, and so we still keep in touch and visit regularly. Why do I teach? The short, simple answer is I wouldn't be the person I am today without the teachers and coaches who helped me, so I feel very much in debt to those individuals that helped shape me, and so I really am passionate about this. For those families who have worked with me before, you probably know a little bit more about why I got into it, and I hope at some point we get to know each other a little bit more and you can hear more about why. What we're going to be studying this year, well, this is going to be medieval history. We're going to be looking at the changes that took place in Europe, Africa, the Americas, and Asia from about 500 CE, or the Common Era, to 1450. This is the period known as the medieval period, or the Middle Ages of world history. This is smack dab in the middle of, it's between ancient and modern US and world history that they'll take in 8th grade and high school. We're going to be covering 900 years in 9 months, about 2 days a week. So we're not going to cover every single event. I like to focus on a few major events in good detail and depth, as opposed to trying to rush through the entire curriculum. I've tried doing the rush to try to cover all 900 years. I find that at the end of the whole experience, learners don't really have a lot to really tie their learning to, because there was just so much information. So I prefer to go into depth, and so that is going to be my focus. It's been my focus for the last 4 or 5 years, and I really do like the results from that approach and attention to detail. Cool. Some of the skills that we're going to be practicing this year, the big one is how to study and use historical sources. This coming week, we're actually going to be looking at what are primary and secondary sources, as we start to learn how to analyze and make sense of them, and as we work towards writing explanatory texts about what we've learned and researched. Super important skill, as I'm sure most of you know, for high school and upper academics in college and universities. So we'll focus on how to use sources, how to make sense of the past, so that we can write explanatory texts about what happened in our past, but also more importantly, why. I feel like the main emphasis of this class is why did this happen and why do we study them? Because ultimately I think the why is far more important than memorizing the dates of what. I do think the chronology and sequence of things are very important, but as we look back at all of recorded history, I think it's important to focus in on what matters for the time that we have to study. We're also going to look at how to create personal histories. I'll talk more about that, but a big emphasis this year is finding our own narratives in history and making sense of the past and how we connect to that. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that with a look at our first project. And the big thing is Google Slides presentations. I think being able to present is a super important skill. We won't get to do full class presentations just yet, but the goal is at some point this year they will have some exposure to that. I don't really know of too many professions that don't require individuals to present information to others effectively. So I think, to me, that's why presentations are such an important skill, and it's a challenging skill to learn. And so that's something that we'll try to practice as much as we can this year. So what do I have? I have very high expectations. I'm very passionate about history and working with children. And we as a department have very consistent results. Right here is a look at our state testing from 2018 to 2019, which was the last year that we actually had data. We weren't able to collect data last year because of the shelter in place. But the one thing I want to highlight is we consistently are able to take learners who are either just below standards or far below standards, and we consistently each year take a good third of them into actually being at standard and or exceeding the standard. And it's because the work that we do is important. I think the emphasis of the department is always on engagement and motivation as a means of learning. We're not really in that age anymore where we can just force children to learn with as many distractions as there are and how we are as a society. So for us, the approach is to try to build engagement into the field of study and to try to expose them into as many forms of literacy as we can, to try to build those skills that do become very important as they get older in their academics. So tracking the course, I have a little class document that I'll share in the chat. It just has just the basic Zoom norms, which all the kids know, my expectations. The big things to take out of it is for reminders. If there's anything that's happening in the Zoom class or meeting, I usually give one reminder for the correction the second time I check in with your child about it, just because I don't want things that are disruptive or inhibit our learning to become normalized. So after the first time, the second time, I'll reach out to you. The big thing that I anticipate is I will need some support around sharing and speaking. I already have a few children who are a little resistant to doing shares in small groups of 2 or 3 on Zoom. I totally understand where it's coming from. Like, there's a lot of social anxiety with being a young adolescent and meeting new people and trying to get acclimated to academic life and also social life that comes with it. The big thing is, though, we need to give as much opportunities for them to become comfortable, and the only way to become comfortable in that sort of setting is to practice. So I'll do my best to structure safe, structured ways to get that social experience. But the big thing is, I probably will need support from parents to have children avoid, because I do have probably one or two kiddos that are not responding, and it's really hard for me to structure a class where we don't have people talking about the past and learning about the past in that way, because I think socializing and communicating is a big part of how we all learn. And then, so yes, other information about my office hours, how to contact me, our plagiarism expectations, and my late work. My late work policy is I accept work 2 weeks after the deadline, uh, unless there's any exceptions, either a medical emergency or a family situation. Either way, just let me know via my email, which is right here, and I'll also post it into the chat. And then I'm also posting a weekly assignment checklist that has all the assignments with links every week so that you guys can track. The weekly assignment checklist is also found on the distance learning page. If you click on this link, it'll take you to this, which I'm sure you've seen from Mike. If you click on 6th or 7th grade, you'll see the Zoom links, you'll see the checklist by period, and it's a great way to track the class overall. Now, this year for the 7th, all work will be turned in on and graded on Jupyter Ed. I'll be orienting and trying to get kids as familiar and comfortable with that as possible. If you need any help navigating that, let me know and I can help you become a Jupyter Pro. And for the 6th grade, all work will be turned in and graded on Google Classroom for now. The rationale was that when we were thinking about trying to orient families who were not actually going to get to work with or meet in person, we thought it'd be easier to use a platform that a lot of families already had experience with, which was Google Classroom. So for now, we are going to be using Google Classroom and getting children and parents set up on that. At some point, we will be transitioning over to Jupyter once we become more familiar with getting the Zoom meetings down, understanding. So once children become more familiar, we will make the transition, ultimately because Jupyter is where the rest of the school is, and it's just a lot easier for our administrators to track, and also for families who have children who are in 6th grade and in 9th grade. It can be challenging to track two individuals. But the main rationale for having the Google Classroom was just to make it a little bit more of a easy transition between 5th and 6th grade, especially considering the situation that we're in. And that's a big thing that will be a part of the class is, this is the first time anybody is doing this sort of thing, like myself, your children, you. So I'm trying to be as patient and understanding as possible. And so far, I've seen every family has been very patient, very positive, and all the children have been awesome. So I just really appreciate how positive everyone has been about the work that we're trying to do remotely. So Edpuzzle, just a quick spiel, a lot of their course assignments will be on Edpuzzle. What I like about Edpuzzle is that I can essentially pick instructional videos related to the topics that we are studying, and I can actually monitor if your children actually watched the video, and I can also put questions into the video that will check their understanding. So not just are they just sitting there staring, but also are they processing and understanding. So I have all the kids on it right now. We've already done 2 assignments on it, and we're doing our 3rd this week. There's a quick little video of just how to use it. It's pretty simple, and if you have any questions, you just let me know. But just a quick little video.
In this video, we are going to show how to use Edpuzzle as a student. So
That was a snafu. Apologies.
Edpuzzle assignment, and most likely that is going to look like this in Google Classroom. So we'll click on the link and then it will prompt us to sign in with Google, and all we'll need to do is click that button and it should sign us automatically in as long as we are already signed in on our computer. Otherwise, we'll need to click our Google account. So you can see on the right for this video, we have a to-do list. There are 2 questions. You can also see down along the bottom on the timeline in the video where those questions pop up.
And what I like about the whole platform is that it really does allow me to just ensure that children are actually watching these videos. Before I switched over to this last year when we started distance learning, I found that the videos that I was assigning weren't really being watched, and most learners were just Googling the questions. And so this is just a way for me to hold accountability to make sure that they are doing the learning that I'm trying to get them to engage in. Cool, cool, cool. And so big thing here, we have our first project that we're starting this week. It's going to be conversations with family photos. So learners will be asked to select a family photograph to analyze as a historian, to get them thinking about how we look at sources in the past, how we examine them, and how we make sense of what happened from the sources that we have left behind. So in addition to selecting a family photo that they're going to analyze, they're also going to interview a family member about the photograph. So they're then going to take that short interview, probably take about 20 to 30 minutes, and they'll write up what they learned from their conversation with the family photograph and their family member. And so learners will need help from someone in your home who's comfortable being interviewed. They also may need help uploading the photo, but that is optional if you are unable to. But the big point of the activity is for them to get a sense of how to actually study sources, but also that what their lives, and the experiences that they have are part of the greater narrative of history, and also to connect more deeply with the people that they share a life with. Because I think your loved ones ultimately shape who you are and what you become. So I want them to start to get as connected to that as possible. So I have the directions in the weekly checklist. Let me see if I can open this up. The assignment here just has the overview of what to do from week to week and each individual step. There's only 3 steps to this process, and each week we'll do 1 step together in class, but they will probably need some help during this process. Okay. Cool. So at this point in time, I'm going to open it up to questions. You can either type it in the chat or unmute your mics and ask. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and I hope you guys are all doing well.